Welcome. Going to talk for a minute about child's pose. Child's pose is what's often referred to as a resting pose. Ideally, child's pose should be a pose you find yourself really wanting to come back to. It should feel like a good place to go anytime your body needs to rest in the practice. Also, an incredible stretch for your lower back and can be extremely helpful. Child's pose can also feel challenging though. It's not necessarily resting for all of us. So, going to show a few ways that you can do child's pose to really get the most out of it. So, for starters, the basic placement, the basic sort of posture for child's pose is we're going to go ahead and let's get down onto our knees here. So we'll come into our tabletop. And from there, classic child's pose, you're going to sit your hips back on your heels, bring your hands out forward, and bring your forehead or the top of your head to the mat. Now in this, you'll get a nice stretch for the lower back, and that may feel great for you. However, sitting here folded over with your knees together may not feel the best. So one thing you can do is you can widen your knees. You can widen them a little bit, you can widen them a lot. Play around with it and see what feels best for your body. For me personally, I do notice the wider I take my knees, the more I'll feel the stretch in my hips versus my lower back. I still feel it in the lower back, it's still a nice stretch, but I do start to feel it more in the hips. So how you decide to do child's pose may just depend on what it is you're looking for that particular day. So with the knees wide, and again, that can just be a little widened or more. It makes a little space for chest, for bellies. If you need that, it can be very helpful to make the pose more comfortable. We're going to ask the pup to move for a second. Come on, Mama. All right, go ahead. And that's what this would look like. Again, arms outstretched, forehead resting on the mat. So one way you can play with child's pose is, again, kind of shifting how you have your knees. Now, for some of us, bringing our head all the way to the mat isn't necessarily comfortable. So that's where you can use a block. Maybe instead of widening my legs, I bring my head to a block and rest that way. Another option might be kind of making it more restorative and placing a bolster under me. Again, widening the knees out, placing a bolster under my chest. This way. So that's an option that I might also make the pose feel more restful, just depending on your body and what your preference is. The last thing I want to point out is a couple of different things you can do with your arms when you're in child's pose. So I'm going to come back into my wide leg child's pose. I'm doing wide leg only because that's my personal preference. It's the way I like and enjoy child's pose the most. But again, you can have your legs completely together, knees pointed completely forward, if that's the way child's pose feels the most restorative and relaxing to you. What to do with the hands. So again, kind of classic, you're going to have them outstretched. However, another option is just to kind of have them in, resting beside your head, elbows resting kind of beside your head. Or some people like to reach back. You can even grab your heels. You may find this restorative. I will say for myself, this does intensify the feeling of the stretch in the lower back, so you might want to try this particular method if that's what you're looking for. One way I like to do my hands in child's pose and particularly enjoy because it gives you a nice tricep stretch at the same time, is bringing your hands together and up and resting your thumbs along the base of your skull. And then just gently walking your elbows out a little bit. And what you'll find is you get a really nice stretch through your triceps, which can feel really good. So when you're looking at child's pose, those are a few options that might help you decide how it can be the most restorative and the most helpful to you to make it that pose that you really do find yourself wanting to return to. Thank you.